The following is a transcript of a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. 22nd May, 2021, Endocrine. Me. Let's start our journey through the body. I am. Our journey will take us through the body systems, the tissues that make us who we are. Remember that system comes from the Greek syn, with, histemi, to establish, and medium, tool. So a system is a means by which a set of things is established, that is, a specific order. Our bodies, like everything else in the universe, are the product of a network of systems. As we have said, networks are the mechanisms by which information is connected in the universal mind. The synaptic network is the exchange of data in the form of electromagnetic pulses. By resonance, this data is grouped together, creating packets of information to what we call organisms. An organ, from the Greek instrument, is a means of work by which a goal is achieved, such as the hammer to drive a nail to the wood or a knife to cut, instruments of some complexity that help to solve diverse issues. Me. So we call the parts that make up a physical body organs, but in reality, the word can define many more things, like social organism. I am. Yes, and also a galaxy can be considered an organism, or the climates of the Earth. They are means of development through networks of interconnected aspects. As we said yesterday, the universal mind is expressed by leaving the internal to the external, due to an intention which begins to generate vibration, which in its different states of tension generates energy, and it produces matter from the union of energetic particles in the conformation of an atom. This atom becomes complex in molecules, in chemical elements, compounds, which end up developing the basis of life and contains it in a cell, which interacts with others, becoming multicellular, which makes it an organism composed of the interaction of several organs. Thus, the organs are the mechanism, instrument, that allows the universal mind to be reflected in matter, in reality, and to live its ideas. Therefore, the organs produce chemical reactions that have different functions, all to maintain the balance, the harmony of that vibration in matter. But some have a more specific and fundamental function, to be portals between the cosmic mind and its manifested attributes. In this case, these organs will be responsible for generating hormones, which will produce chemical reactions in the body, driving it to act, which generates movement, that is, emotion. And emotion produces alterations in consciousness in the nervous system of the body, which produce understanding, reasoning, and from this it becomes manifester, communicator, creator. Me. And so the mind of the cosmic spirit can express itself in the universal body in this reality. I am. That's right. And to do so, it uses its vibration so that the energy resonates and opens the doors to the chemical reaction necessary for the idea to materialize. You could perhaps understand how this works through a crystal prism. Imagine that the divine spirit, the mind, which is infinite, decides to discover and experience one of its attributes, but is unable to see it on its own because everything coexists in it as unity. Now, we will call the spirit as white light, a light that incorporates in itself all the possible vibrations of the universe, and therefore contains in itself all the frequencies, the attributes of its being. But if you want to see one of them, you will need something, a tool, that allows you to separate your vibrations into different frequency waves in order to identify those parts of you. To do this, you will need geometry, a geometric pattern that, because it has different veins, will imply obstacles to direct light and will cause the different types of frequency to fractify. Me. The glass prism, like the famous symbol of Pink Floyd, a crystal quartz to which a ray of white light is subjected, and on the other side you can see the rainbow. I am. This is the reflection of light to molecules that reflect their photonic waves at different frequencies. The higher will make you see violet, the lower will make you see red. Me. The chakras. I am. That's how they appear. They are attunements of the same being that fragments itself. Imagine that pure white light is the divine mind, the spirit, and that your organs are those prisms of cellular crystal. Thus, when it enters you, it comes out fractionated forward like a rainbow. Me. Oh, now I see it clearly. I am. The state in which these organs are will make you see one or another color, darker or brighter, depending on whether the vibration is very low or very high. You can imagine your organs as vortices, as whirlwinds that absorb pure light from a plane and fragment it outward into refracted light. All this in the long term destroys the purity of the prisms, which begin to contain or contract the reflex, generating diseases. Me. How do I identify those problems in my prisms? I am. First, you have to know them well, and by understanding its physical function, you will be able to understand its spiritual function. Spirit designed this reality for its purposes of expression and creation, of self-realization, and each of these prisms, therefore, has a specific function in your spiritual path and development of being. Me. What are these prisms? I am. The glands. The word comes from glands, which means acorn, fruit of oak, holm oak and cork oak, due to the shape that these organs possess, similar to the seeds of the genus Quercus. Above all, there are certain major glands that regulate the frequencies of the spirit by converting them into manifested attributes, and they are part of a network called the endocrine system. Me. Oh yes, pineal, pituitary, thyroid, thymus, pancreas, adrenals, and genitals. Why is it called endocrine? I am. The word comes from the Greek endo, interior, within, and krinein, separate, distinguish. And basically, it is the system that refers to the separation or distinction of the internal aspects, which regulate each of the other organs in their functions. The endocrine glands hormonally command the functions of each organ, driving their actions through the chemical reactions that produce hormones. A minimal and tiny amount of hormones can produce a great change in the attitude of the whole physical body. Me. How to understand each of them? I am. We are going to first locate them in our body, then understand what their function is, and thus be able to understand what their functionality or their conflicts generate for us. Me. Perfect. We start at the top then. Pineal gland. I am. The pineal is so named because of its shape similar to the seed of a pineapple. The pine tree was always considered a sacred tree because its conformation points spirally towards the heavens, considering it a tree of ascension to the divine. Its seeds, arranged in the same way in a beautiful and perfect double golden spiral, show the sacredness of this species, as well as being a source of energy for animals and humans during the winter, both as food in the pine nuts as well as fire in the structure that contains them. In many cultures, you can see decorations shaped like pineapples in sacred temples representing this connection. The pineal is located in the center of the brain, cerebrum, placed in a hollow above the epithalamus, a part of the diencephalon, made up of the thalamus and hypothalamus. The diencephalon is located exactly in the center of the head and has the function of processing all sensory, emotional information, memory, and movements in relation to them. The pineal is no bigger than a grain of rice and regulates the cycle of sleep and wakefulness by secreting the hormone melatonin, secreted before the increase of darkness, since the presence of light calms its production, thus constituting the gland that regulates our 24-hour cycle. And it not only regulates sleep, but awakens or turns off every biological function, especially by regulating heart rate and reproduction. Due to the fact that it is a photosensitive gland, it is capable of capturing more than 700 colors, frequencies of light, which makes it the receiving gland of all the information coming from the light planes. Thus it allows the direct connection with the universe, with divinity and the spirit. The gland vibrates constantly and regulates the state of resonance of a being. By receiving the data of light, it is in turn the door to the infinite thoughts of the cosmos, and because of this, it is the gland on whose activation our way of seeing and perceiving the world depends. It functions as an inner light, capable of being an inner eye, that not only receives light, but emits it, and therefore, a completely overexcited pineal gland can be seen as illumination, being what we consider third eye, me, like the halo of the saints, of the enlightened masters. I am. Yes, the conflicts in this gland speak to us of a mismanagement of our ability to see beyond, to understand the world, to open ourselves to other points of view, to have our mind closed to a single way of seeing things, beliefs, traditions. In addition, it is related to the fear of the perception of other planes, the traumas in relation to things that we have seen and that we deny. To correct the pineal prism, it is necessary to sleep enough, rest, and take walks where you can see far to the horizon at long distances, as well as, of course, meditation and eye exercises. Me, the hypophysis, I am, many times called pituitary, due to a misconception of Roman times in which it was considered that this gland, located just behind the eyebrows at the height of the nose and temples, was the one that produced the nasal mucus. Pituite means mucus in Latin, and I don't think this gland deserves such an unattractive name for what it represents. Me. Of course not. I am. Hypophysis means below growth, since it is located below the thalamus as opposed to the pineal, also called epiphysis, which equals above growth. It is contained in a hollow of the sphenoid bone, space commonly called Turkish saddle, which is the throne where the king sits. Therefore, this gland is related to the crown, who directs the rest of the physical kingdom. The pituitary or hypophysis gland measures no more than 12 millimeters, that is, something more than a grain of rice, and its shape resembles the genital gonads. This gland is responsible for regulating the functioning of all the others, managing the process of homeostasis, that is, the harmonious functioning of the body, is like the king on the throne who controls his kingdom. Therefore, it regulates growth, vitality, levels boosting strength, hair and hair production. Therefore, the electromagnetic charge and discharge of the body, which awakens spiritual and artistic attributes and gifts, divine inspiration. And as a king, he dictates the ethics, morals, philosophy of an individual. The problems in this prism can be observed in critical, dissatisfied, very structured people with great inconsistencies and gigantisms in the ego and ideas. Reactivating this gland is possible through vibration, sounds with the palate, singing, resonance of strong or nasal sounds that vibrate the Turkish saddle in the highest and deepest part of the upper part of the palate. So massages with the tongue in this area could in turn stimulate this gland in the same way as stimulating the genitals in the sexual act. In doing so, empowerment can be ignited, the ability to execute ideas, to be guided by one's own thoughts, to be flexible and conciliative, opening paths forward. Me. The thyroid. I am. Its name comes from the Greek thyreos, shield, and eidos, shape. That is, it has the shape of a shield. It is located in the throat, surrounding the trachea below the vocal cords. It is like a communication bridge that filters signals from the pituitary gland to the rest of the body. Basically, the pituitary, hypophysis, sends its signals to encourage the thyroid to regulate and communicate the impulses of the other glands, and therefore, as a shield, is dedicated to protecting the excess functioning of the lower glands of the body. Its greatest action in the body is to promote development and growth. Thus, its hormones, thyroxine, or T4, and triiodithyronine, or T3, are present in all tissues, driving metabolism that allows the dissolution of lipids and carbohydrates, and the growth of tissues, regulating in turn body heat, such as the generation and regeneration of nerve cells. Thyroxine regulates body temperatures and drives body growth and size. Due to its role as a communicator between the upper planes of the pituitary and the lower planes of the rest of the body, regulating all metabolism, it is the communication bridge that embodies the laryngeal or throat chakra. The ruptures of the prism are seen in communication conflicts, in diseases that affect the development of an individual, generating hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, which shows us our capacity for internal growth, to learn, to receive, or to be unable to recognize and accept dialogue or new information. It is affected by unsaid things, by lies, by lack of communication and denial of evolution. It is the producer of energy, so a drop in the body's energy is related to a malfunction of it. Conflicts in this gland can lead to poor communication between the pituitary gland and thymus, which makes a person unable to regulate the balance between what he thinks and feels. It generates a vacuum of the future, inability to undertake anything new. The imbalance produces excess unregulated fluids, which exacerbates genital production, uncontrolling sexuality, leading to aggressive acts. To regulate this gland, it is important to produce heat through mouth breathing, singing, neck massage, and a regulated amount of iodine consumption. This will make it easier for the portal to keep us active, energetic, with resistance to live longer and strength to undertake and learn. Me. The thymus, the gland of the heart. I am. It is located above the cardiac organ, embracing it. The origin of its name comes from the Indo-European geo, which means smoke, fire, and which gave rise to two Greek words, thymos, vital energy, and thymus, time. The relationship between energy and the plant, time, is that time was used to make fire in ancient ceremonies, whose aroma revitalized, giving vigor and power to those present, who felt their chest widen. The gland also has the shape of the thyme flower, wrapping the heart above. Its importance is fundamental, especially in the first stages of life, since it is responsible for the formation of thymocytes, T cells, which arise in the marrow and are formed in the thymus to be useful in the immune system. Basically, these cells generated here are the ones that will travel through the blood in search of invaders, trained to capture them and incorporate them as defense records. The thymus is the great glandular shield against all evils, and is the life expectancy of all humans. His predisposition to the defense of the whole body without exception makes it the gland at the service of the whole, which places it in the place of the high heart chakra, that unconditional energy that provides us with security, confidence, certainty, determination, freedom, and faith. Therefore, if it does not work regularly, fear, dissatisfaction, negativity, and depression will be key that will lead us to lower our defenses and get sick faster. Therefore, the lack of love, hugs, affection, joy, and inner fire turns off the system, leaving it defenseless. To activate, it is necessary hugs, where the chest feels the chest of the other, the beat, while doing things for love to help. Stick the chest out in front when walking, sitting, back straight, and gentle massage on the sternum with subtle and affectionate taps on the heart. This will ignite conviction, self-confidence, the breath of life, hope for the future. Me. Pancreas, the gland of sweetness. I am. It comes from a somewhat unpleasant name, being all raw meat. Pan, which equals everything, and kreas, which equals raw meat. It is located in the abdominal cavity between the stomach and the liver, connected to the duodenum. Its function is essential in the body, in direct relation to the digestive system. It fulfills two functions. Endocrine separates inside, and exocrine separates outside. The endocrine is related to its known function of secreting hormones such as insulin, in addition to others such as glucagon, polypeptides, and somatostatin. In itself, insulin is the one that fulfills the most recognized function, which is to spread through the bloodstream in search of sugars, which it captures to take them to the cell walls, where it processes them so that they are absorbed by the cells nourishing them. This leads to it controlling blood sugar. For its exocrine part, it sends gastric juices to the duodenum, which receives not only these juices from the pancreas, but also the bile, which together will be prepared to dissolve those fats and materials more difficult to corrode from the stomach and liver. The duodenum is the bridge through which the stomach sends digested into the intestines. The pancreas, therefore, has a double function in relation to the internal process of being, as well as to the external process, which makes it the gland of relationships, the one that nourishes the inner world from its links with the external world. A bad relationship with the external world and what we consume from it can generate imbalances in this gland, leading us to not be able to process certain situations. Bad relationships, people with whom we do not finish closing ties, things that we swallow in life and cannot digest, the lack of love that leads us to a constant search for sugars or empty relationships, all this is a reflection of the damaged prism, which makes us closed, selfish, or egocentric, dependent, or manipulative. To calibrate it, it is necessary to evaluate our dependencies, change our ways of eating, perform circular massages in the stomach regularly, and give each other affection. This will awaken our capacity for delivery, balance, to be able to better process the information of the world, to have more harmonious relationships and links without dependencies. All this brings us to the center, to the plexus of being, me. Now, the adrenals, the glands of power and will, I am. They are related to the sacral chakra, and despite this, they are located almost at the same height as the pancreas, but behind the back above the kidneys. That's where their name comes from the Latin ad renis, next to the kidney, although specifically, when they are on top, it is normal to know them as adrenals. Its function is basically to regulate stress, both to relax the body and activate it in a situation that requires all the attention and power. First, to resume homeostasis and regulate the functioning of the body in a stressful situation, the adrenals produce cortisol, which activates sugars in the body, relaxing it, leading it to a state of satiety. On the other hand, if it is necessary to react, the adrenals will generate the famous hormone adrenaline, which will put the body on alert, boosting muscle contraction and the generation of energy aimed at responding to external stimuli. A mismatch in this prism can lead us to lose the notion of direction, of why we do what we do. You see frustration, reluctance, the feeling of worthlessness, the loss of strength, and therefore of desire and will. A conflict here leads to fighting, combat, war, and uncontrolled anger, panic, or in its opposite, defeat, fear, surrender, the feeling of being lost and wrong. We can thus understand that these glands are completely dual, polar, which make us oscillate between the positive and the negative incessantly. The sacrum is regulated to the creative, to the manifestation, and therefore, to regulate it is necessary to exercise, art, all kinds of manifestation of dreams and desires, to do what we like, and to take the necessary relaxation times. This will lead to igniting the inner creative fire. Me. And finally, the genitals. I am. Also called gonads, they come from the same origin. Gene, meaning birth, emergence, generating something, giving birth. They have a double function. The production of sex cells by means of meiosis, which allow the emergence of life cells, gametes, and, on the other hand, a glandular function in the production of hormones. In men, the glands are called testicles, and they will produce testosterone. In women, the glands are called ovaries, and they produce progesterone and estrogen. In the process of embryonic generation, these glands are the same, and it is not until the organism is defined between male or female that they will take different positions. The ovaries will remain inside the body, attached to the uterus by the fallopian tubes, all located above the bladder, below and behind the intestines, connected by the vaginal neck to the vulva. The function of ovaries in relation to gametes is the formation of eggs, female cells that will allow gestation in contact with sperm, while in the male, these gonads will descend into the scrotal sac on the outside of the body, protecting at room temperature the gametes produced in the testicles, that is, the sperm. In the case of the male, the equivalent of the uterus is the prostate, generator of all the sugars and nutrients that will surround the sperm, giving them a space conducive to development, called semen, which will be issued in the ejaculate through the seminal canal to the urethra emerging through the glands in the muscular structure equivalent to the vagina that you call the penis. Me. So the male genitals are basically female organs that have been turned outward. I am. Yes. The male will produce testosterone, which will activate all reproductive functions, which will give strength, vigor, heat, encouraging erection, stimulation, and secreting odors that attract females to reproduce. In the case of females, the same will happen with estrogen, which produces the development of cells, the assimilation of proteins, the absorption of fats, and activate the sexual appetite, preparing the body for reproduction, attracting the male with their aromas, and generating impulses in the brain system of the thalamus, which causes mood swings. Me. This is what happens during periods of menstruation, isn't it? I am. Yes, every 28 days. Although the hormone responsible for the development of this process is progesterone, that is, the one that predisposes the body to gestate, influencing the female cycle, the development of the uterus, breasts, and endometrium. In both men and women, these glands are regulated or encouraged by the pituitary, the genitals of the brain, since it is the spirit that asks to descend into matter. A malfunction of these glands implies a disconnection with the king or queen of the body, which produces fear of the loss of power, of control over the material, over basic needs, living from the idea of poverty or the intention to put oneself on others to get what I need. The gonads are the anchor of the spiritual world, and a mishandling of them, both in excess and in scarcity, will imply a significant spiritual disconnection. Although it may seem strange, it is the genitals that regulate sexual appetite, calming the body through the production of its hormones. It is necessary to stimulate them for a good functioning of this prism, through masturbation and orgasm, with ejaculation at least once a week for a good genital condition. Sensitivity of touch and caresses, as well as kundalini meditations or yoga and tantra. Its regulation will allow strength, clarity, determination, self-esteem, health, and happiness, allowing us to be achievers, manifestors. Me. Interesting. Understanding how the system builds who we are the doors of spirit and matter, and recognizing them is fundamental to living a full life here and now. I am. They are the main chambers of the temple that is your body. Honor them. Get to know them. Learn about them. About the emotional meanings of each one. About diseases and their meanings. Biodecode your body and understand the temple you inhabit. Open the doors of these 7 main chambers and let the spirit live in you. Me. I am the portal of the universal mind made matter. I am. I am the channel of cosmic consciousness here and now.